Welcome back, everyone, to Merge Conflict, your weekly developer podcast covering all things in the world of AI for development. It's the only thing we talk about, Frank. Is that not true?
Uh, AI for development or AI assisted development or AI doing the
Ooh.
development. I guess those are all different things. Let's go with AI assisted for the moment.
Yes. Well, Frank, it's been a week, that is for sure. And we are technically at build. If you're listening to this, build day one is about to happen. Now, I don't actually know what's going to happen on day one. So I can't really discuss all the things that we're announcing. And also, this podcast comes out technically before build day one, which means technically we can't talk about build day one.
And yet here we are talking about build day one. It's like
No.
the Superman trailer all over again. It's like, have I seen the movie or will I see the movie? You just can't tell these days.
Frank, do you want to talk a little bit of follow up though, since we're not talking about build?
Okay.
Okay. I was just playing bingo, and I left on a cycle to come back over here to do this podcast with you, and left my wife and Stephanie there. And
were you winning? That's the big question.
I did not win. However, I did get an update. Heather did win, and she was in a face-off against somebody else, and she won. So that is pretty exciting.
I haven't won bingo since I was 10 years old, so that's pretty great.
That's pretty good. I witnessed some terrible software for bingoing. It was like a spin wheel that had like words, and they picked random ones. It was hard to see. And last week you talked about, apps on demand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of like, oh, like that clearly is like a terrible app, and there's ads everywhere. And I'm just like, this poor bingo guy who's really funny has to deal with this like terrible website because this is what's available. So I went up to him, Ben, and I was like, hey, Ben, I would like to redo this for you. I was like, I will. He's like, what are you, a designer? I'm like, no, I'm a developer. I'm like, I will make this better. Give me your email and let's dream up your ideal bingo situation that's happening here, because everything that's happening, I hate it. And he was struggling, like technical things, it was crashing. I was like, it's a spinny wheel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's why I was thinking like the programming is not even hard. I think we all know how to write math.random. The real question is, well, it's actually trickier than that because you want to throw away all the ones that you've already done. But I think his question was valid. Are you a designer? Because like something like this, it's a game. And games are 90% art and design. The engine is the easy, fun part. The hard part is doing all the graphics for it and everything. So what's your feeling here? You must feel pretty confident that you can vibe code a random number generator. How are you feeling about making a wheel spin?
Yeah, I can make a wheel spin pretty decently. I'm pretty sure Copilot could figure that out. In all honesty, to be truthful, yeah, I think that it definitely is something I can do. Yeah.
When you were saying that, I was actually like, oh, this is a really cool test case. I almost want a video of someone who's not a developer trying to vibe code this, because I still feel like vibe coding is a real strength for people who do know how to code. Because it just makes the coding journey easier and more fun, kind of. But if you don't have any experience coding or anything, I can just imagine like, oh, you're going to hit some bottlenecks real soon, real fast, or maybe even not bottlenecks, but some brick walls and things like that.
Yeah, I think that it depends. I think in general, like I think what was fascinating about me talking to him really quick was just like how he came about basically building this bingo night, which was like, oh, I use ChatGPT to generate like the theme, and then I go to this website that generates the bingo cards, and then I go to this other website that does the spinny thing, and then I do this other thing, and I was just like, wow, like there's so many missing parts to it, and I was like, oh, I bet I could build this in like a day, you know what I mean, if that, you know what I mean, and just like get it done to like be what it is today, but just like not crash and be a little bit better than what it is. I'm not trying to create a startup. I'm just trying to work at my local bingo beer hall and get something done. You know what I mean?
BaaS, bingo as a service. So you're not going to monetize it or anything like that. But okay, so you keep saying crashing. Was this a website or not? Was it actually like an app? Because we all know apps crash, websites just stop loading. That's kind of how it works.
Accurate. Yes, I would. So it is definitely a website, and it's on a Chromebook. So whatever was struggling, basically, So it was not doing so good. And then I was like, oh, I could like build like something that works offline with like WebAssembly, and I could do this. He's like, oh my god, that'd be amazing. Like we have this issue and that thing. You know what I mean? Like I was like, yeah, we could
So
make it work.
I think you got this, but I think like if I was to take this on, I would really have to constrain myself because immediately I would render some 3D balls. Would involve a physics engine. They would actually be, like simulate, and then like the friction coefficient wouldn't be right, so like it wouldn't actually be random; it'd be pseudo random.
Yeah.
So like you got to draw some lines. This is the hard part of coding is the actual encoding of the problem. So I'm curious where you drew those lines, or if you're just gonna vibe your way through those lines and just be like, no 3D balls today, no physics engine today, or you're gonna stick with math.random.
I think that I'm going to have like a theme picker, that's for sure, of like how things work. And I'm going to start with the spinny wheel. I'm also going to do like a, grids. It's like, like different like cards basically that get picked and like pop up on top of it. So I'll clean up with themes. So I can always add another theme to it, but I'll start with the 2 themes, I think, in the top of mind. So at least matches what he has and then kind of go from there. That's kind of my thinking, at least.
Okay, so no balls, nothing's actually going to jostle around or anything like that.
In the future, it may. We don't know.
Now, this is not build oriented, but did you see that Link is going to finally get a shuffle method? So if you have like a list of things, because this is the problem, you can't just do a random number generator because you want to throw away the ones that have already been chosen. So that's why it's actually a permutation that you need to go through. And permutations are one of those easy things. You're like, I'm just going to write some permutation code. And then you're like, I don't actually know how to write permutation code. And then you go get the Art of Computer Programming Volume 2. I think that's where he does pseudo-random numbers. And you just copy Knuth's algorithm for doing permutations. But now, did you see the announcement? We are going to get a dot shuffle in Link. So you could actually just, I forget exactly how many numbers are in Bingo, but I think it's 100, right? So you have 1 through 100.
Yeah.
And then they get grouped into the 5 letters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. However many letters there are in Bingo. So the right way to do this would be to just make a list of 100 numbers and run shuffle on it. And then just pull from the top of that list. And that would be your order. Because that way you're guaranteed not to get the wrong number. All your probabilities are correct. It will actually simulate the physical system of pulling a ball out of a hopper for every single one.
I like that.
Gambling's hard. You gotta random numbers and probabilities, it's easy to cheat and do it wrong. Because if you keep a list of all the ones that you have already called out or discarded, however you want to think of it, and you keep calling random, and then you ignore the ones that you've already done, probabilities are wrong in that case. So you can't do it that way. You actually have to do a proper random permutation.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah, it's it's a fascinating problem. I just think that like I was just thinking about the apps on demand type of scenario of just like, okay, I can get this thing spun up in like no time at all. Yeah.
Have you tried that? The simplest one? You're just like, give it the most vague prompt ever. Like, I need a Bingo app. Please write the HTML, the CSS, and the backing JavaScript code and just blurt it out. Have you tried that? Or are you being a software developer and stepping through?
Do you want me to try it right now? Okay, so I'm going to go into create a new workspace, and I'm going to say new. I'm going to say create. What are we going to say? Create a
full
Bingo
web. Yeah, full client side web app, complete HTML and client side JavaScript, in order to what is the term? Discard. Pick bingo things at random. It's smart. It'll figure it out. Say bingo things. And depending on your AI, that might even be enough. But because I remember I was using like Llama and having Llama generate little web apps, giving it very vague definitions of web apps, and it was good enough to do that. Which model are you going to use here?
4.1.
4.1. Haven't tried the 4.1. But
it's fast. It's the fastest. So, okay, I'm going to do, so you can go into VS Code now and you can do new workspace. It's going to create a new workspace. I'm going to go in and I'm going to pick the workspace area. So C, GitHub, and I'm going to say bingo app.
Mm-hmm. Good name.
And select an empty workspace. Yeah, it's a get out. Mm-hmm. And now it's going to open said workspace, and it's going to continue the setup. And it is
It's going to generate some NPM modules for you. It's going to download half of the internet. It's going to create a package.
I did one thing, which was don't use any frameworks. That's what I said.
Okay, good. Yeah. I like to say that too. I'm like, just use DOM, maybe use jQuery if I'm feeling saucy.
So it has a... did it. Okay, so it has it created an created a HTML index.html and a bingo.js.
Great.
I guess I'm going to reveal in folder. I guess I can just open said. Okay, that created a bingo app. Now this is a bingo card application. So I created a bingo card. What I want to do is not create a bingo card. See, I messed up. So I said create a bingo app. And I'll say,
well, you need both,
actually,
I guess. Yeah.
No, they print out physical pieces of paper, and then they have actually what I want to create is what would you call a bingo MC?
A virtual bingo hopper. Oh, yeah. You want the random number generator, right? The thing that actually pulls the balls out of the hopper at random. You want that thing.
Not the card.
Mm-hmm.
Make it look
the card,
pretty good.
because every card's different, so you kind of
they're gonna have the card.
Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah, that's the thing is, remember, they have the card. They printed out the cards on a piece of paper that are themed, and then they have on a TV this wheel that is spinning around in a circle, basically, that is picking random things. So that's the jam. Anyways, so
I like the wheel. It's like a wheel of fortune instead of a hopper with balls, but I'm more of a old school ball person.
Wow. Ooh, it has some gradients. And then, so now it just, oh, wow, this is really cool. So it's drawing random numbers, and then it has like this is so stupid. It's so amazing. And then you can reset. So it's just drawing random numbers, which is great. And then, and it just lights it up. So like if they've already been selected, they're green. So it's 1 to 75. And then it like highlights the number that you just picked in yellow. And then when you do the next draw, then it moves it and it keeps the other one highlighted. It's, I'm just saying.
That's okay. We're out of jobs. But it was smart of me. I didn't know when it only went up to 75. Who knew that? I would have had to go read the Wikipedia entry on how bingo actually works. So I do want you to look at the code, but are you just clicking a button to see like what the next drawn letter number combination is?
Yeah, I just told it to make it a spinning wheel, and then remove the number after the wheel picks from it. I'm already on my 8th iteration of the startup. Oh my god, it's totally definitely doing it. I mean, so it's literally only the HTML is like 100 lines of code, and the JavaScript is 60 lines of code. I mean, it's working on the JavaScript right now, so.
I'm always curious what it does for the drawing. Did it choose to do SVG or Canvas?
Canvas.
Good. I like Canvas.
Wow. Oh my god, and the wheel is spinning. This is so stupid. Oh. And then it removes it from it afterwards. That's almost too good. Yeah, Frank Burger. Yep.
Now hit refresh. Make sure it actually starts on a new number. Did it hard code the seed for the random number? I'm really curious how it's actually doing the random numbers.
No, so it did. Okay, so the first one was 72, and then it did 59. Okay, let's refresh it. Do it again. First one is 58. So you're just random.
I need letters, man. I need like G58. So
all right,
we need to fix this puppy.
Make the numbers also letter based in a grid that is I guess it's like A1. Yeah, and it'll figure it out. Based in a grid, and make sure that the wheel is larger and it is side by side horizontal to the numbers drawn. I don't know, do that. I don't know, it's just going to figure it out. So anyways, it's just super good. Again,
Yeah,
this
that's
app
good.
on demand, we just prototyped this application, Frank, in like 5 minutes. So what I'm saying is I made this application, which is 2 files on a disk
Yeah.
for this person. Now, this is not what I'm going to ship this person, but like ideally, this is kind of pretty awesome at the same time of like, I prototype something and say, okay, I can just like do this thing.
Yeah, this is a pretty easy app, I would say, because I tried this with a different app that we can talk about because I wanted a quick app also after our conversation last week. But
Mm,
this is exciting because it gets you to the fun part, I would say. Like, I hate getting everything set up and thinking through. Like I said, I like to over engineer things. And so I think one fun thing of just throwing the ball to the AI is being like, well, I don't have to over engineer it. Hopefully it will minimally engineer it because usually they try to take all the shortcuts they can. So they try
yeah.
to do that. And so I like that you actually got to get something on the screen, even if you're going to throw this away after an hour, but it'll let you experiment with it and play around with the idea.
Yeah, get different ideas of, and also help me like do the prompting, right? So like right here, I did like a one shot and it just did something, but now I'm actually going to do a multi shot and kind of like actually make it do its thing, which is really kind of cool. So yeah,
But you had it editing the code, right? You didn't have it start over from scratch each time.
no, it's
No.
just editing it in place. It's just doing its thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, what did you build? What did you? I want to say this. We got on and I was talking about vibe coding. I was doing some stuff and Frank was making fun of me, of course, and as he does. And, I think some people have listened to podcasts I've done. People have asked me a lot of questions. And, you know, I like to say that, like, yes, there is definitely like vibe coding that you can do, but also at the same time, there's also like coding, right? Like that you're doing.
Yeah.
And um, you're reviewing the code. So adding features, like you're not always creating a new app from scratch. You're also adding features and doing stuff. And if you're inside of a code base, it understands the code base. It can help you add features to your application a lot faster in
Yeah.
general. And that's one of the main reasons to be vibing out and doing stuff. So, and again, when I say vibe coding, I really think of more of just like coding with AI that's going, but I'm in kind of a flow that's there. But I'm glad
Yeah.
that I encourage you, it sounds like, to actually do some stuff. So what all have you
But
been up to,
I'm
Frank?
curious why I failed and I only tried one thing, but I'm still a Copilot user. I still have that doing a lot of work for me, but I tried to do the whole no code thing, right? And
Yes.
so the deal is about 10 years ago, I wrote a very simple app called a spectrogram. So spectrogram is um, it's like an audio recorder and it visualizes the waveform, but it visualizes the frequencies in the wave. So if you've ever had that annoying thing where you hear like a high pitched buzz coming through your window and you're like, what is that? Where is that? All these
Yeah.
things. You just want to know about it. I love these kinds of little apps. So it's a spectrogram. It's just a graphical way to display sound. All engineers know about these things. We love them. They're the best way to visualize anything. Well, it's fun too because it mixes time and frequencies, and it's just not something. Um, it's better than just like viewing a waveform because if you've ever tried to do audio editing with just a waveform, it's impossible. Anyway, so I wrote this app about 10 years ago and I was playing with it. I'm like, there's a lot of features missing from this app. I need a version 2 of this app.
Ah.
And so I broke out the code, my code from 10 years ago, and I had that wonderful experience of what drunk idiot wrote this code? This code is terrible. And it had some weird bug where every time I built it with a new SDK, it would start crashing after 5 seconds, even though the app runs perfectly fine on my phone. Um, when I built it afresh, it kept crashing. So I'm like, you know what, James? Because of James, I'm going to vibe code this puppy. I'm just version 2. It's time for version 2, Spectrogram V2. And I just want to vibe code this buddy. And I failed. So I think one of the hardest parts is if you just say like I want a spectrogram of the microphone, it's not quite enough information. The design space is still too far open. So in my app, you could pinch to zoom horizontally, which would let you zoom into time. You could pinch to zoom vertically, which would allow you to dig into frequencies. You could scroll with your finger. It's a very touch first mobile kind of app. And just describing those features, I was getting frustrated because I couldn't even figure out like the right words to use. I'm like, okay, when my finger touches it and slides over, it should track with my finger and move the timeline. But if I flick to the left, then it should go to the current time and it should start showing the current time on the right hand side and scrolling off. The buffer should be at least a couple minutes long so that I can pause and move around and things like this. On top
Mm.
of that, I want I forget what kind of envelope you call it. I think it's called a Han window, where you you can make a spectrogram really ugly with a lot of jaggedy edges. So there's well-known techniques. You put a envelope over the time series, and you do your Fourier transform over this envelope instead of every instantaneous piece. But to do that, you need to know the sample rate, the size of the window, and the actual pixel size that you're going to be targeting. In my version of the app, as the user zooms in, I adjust all those parameters to make it really smooth and all of that. And so I think I wrote about 4 or 5 paragraphs, and I was like, well, this sounds terrible. I'm confusing myself in my own description here. Anyway, hit go and code this puppy for me. And
Nice.
it just got lost because these are features I had in my app. I had hardware accelerated rendering. I was doing all the drawing on the GPU. I was using accelerated libraries to do all the Fourier transforms. I was applying a color palette to special mixes of the power spectrum, because sometimes you want a logarithmic scale, sometimes you want a linear scale, other times you want to do crazy things and actually have it written out on like piano style music, sheet notation. You want your frequencies written out on a staff, on a musical staff. And I just kind of got lost in all the features, and these were features I'd already implemented. These were table stakes for me. I'm trying to do a
Mm.
version 2 of the app, and I just wrote so much text and got into such a mess just trying to get the V1 table stakes features in. So that's roughly my problem. Where did I go wrong, James? What should I have done? Or are we just not there yet?
Um, I don't know. It's hard to say where you went wrong. I don't know if you did go wrong. I mean, you still might just be in your early iteration phase of whatever you're building.
I just feel like a picture is worth 1,000 words, and I was up to like 2,000 words, and I still had very few of the feature set implemented. Like, you were able to say to this
Mm,
bingo thing, I need bingo. It's a thing it understands.
yes.
But if I have a UI in mind, especially a novel UI, something basically very few apps actually do what I want, like a real-time spectrogram generator with user
Mm,
interactive drawing and recalculation. It just felt like so much work describing it in text. But I guess I'm playing devil's advocate with myself. What's longer, me writing all that code or me writing the description for all that code and all those features? Should I have written a 10-page, 20-page design doc? Is that what I need to do?
I mean, you could do spec-driven development. That kind of going down that scenario that you're saying. It's
Mhm.
hard to say. I mean, in this scenario where, I mean, a spectrogram is like not necessarily like new. You know what I
No,
mean?
not at all.
The
But
question
as an
is,
interactive app, it a little bit is. Like, there's only three or
yeah,
four competitors on the App Store with it. No websites do this kind of thing.
yeah. So the question is like, does it have that context of what it needs to do? I mean, it should be able to do it. The question is, yeah, is the prompt almost too complex for what you were doing?
Hmm.
I mean, like that's another part too. Is like the context window, like giving it more context window is like good, obviously, but then how much is too much at the end of the day?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For actually generating something compared to like maybe what I would have done is like worked on smaller parts of the app first or like some logic. It's a little bit hard to say exactly where you were going with it. Was this like a C# application or was it like a Swift application or
At first, I was actually like, "Let's do a web app." Let's do some web app here. But then I
yeah.
remembered that JavaScript is terrible at math, and so you can't do any of the kind of high performance stuff I was going to do. So we immediately the AI and we went on a little side tangent of trying to do
Nice.
GPU programming. And
Okay.
then I realized it's not very good at web GPU programming. So it's way better at WebGL programming and like Three.js programming. Those libraries
Gotcha.
it knows very well. So then I'm like, okay, forget the web. Let's just write this in Apple stuff. And then syntax error, syntax error, syntax error, because the Apple math libraries are all low-level C libraries, and you have to be very
Mm,
precise with how you're allocating buffers and doing all your tricky windowing stuff, especially when I'm doing my envelope calculations. So that was just generating coding errors constantly. Now, that might just be the model's fault. But I then, yeah, basically I was getting lost in even what environment to do it in, because JavaScript, by default, it would have to pull in a bunch of libraries or do a web assembly or something like that to make it performant, or web GPU, which sadly all the AIs are terrible at web GPU right now. And then the alternative is you do C, but then C was all just crashing and buffer overruns and terrible code like that, and it still didn't know how to write the renderer. So so that was a little sad, and maybe I felt like I could maybe with enough prompting get it to work. But here's the thing: I have an app called iCircuit, and iCircuit has a spectrogram in it. It's just a small window. Any circuit you build, you can get one of these plots out of it. And that is a tiny, small feature of this much larger app. And I figured, man, if it's going to take me 10 pages of text just for that one little feature, what does the whole app look like? Is that a 100
mm.
page app? Is that a 200 page app? I just started asking myself all these meta questions. That's the direction I like to go. I get lost in the meta
Yeah.
question very quickly. So that was my bad experience there.
Yeah,
I
that's
just feel like
fascinating. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
I
I
don't
think
feel like it can handle sophistication right now. If you're asking for a web form that generates some random numbers, great. If you're asking for an interactive thing, I think less so.
I don't know. I mean, I've seen what people have built and it's actually relatively impressive. I am curious, like, if you maybe over architected your prompts too
Mm-hmm.
much in a way, which is fascinating to think about. Like, I always say, like, more context is better, but like, maybe in your instance, like, more context isn't better. And then I also am fascinated by, like, when I start to work on applications, I am kind of curious to, if you're trying to do everything all at once,
Yeah.
that also is good and bad. Whereas, like, breaking it down into different chunks, like actually steps that you want to complete and review, is like a better mechanism. Like, one shotting is amazing, but then also like can be more complicated. Is trying to like do everything right, which like it should technically be able to do. But then also you get into the scenario, which is like what you're saying is, okay, am I going to create this 100 doc spec or just like implement the thing that I want in my mind, right, of what I want?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's trying to parse everything that you're saying. So it's like, okay, like actually, could I break down this problem into, you know, 10 or 20 different processes that it's going through to create it in general? So that might be a little bit more fascinating. And then iterating on the UI design of the spectrogram to get like something first. Like, okay, we're going to start with this prototype and like make it grow up from here. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
let's say I'm building this wallpaper gallery. Like, maybe I don't start with, here's what I want at the end of the day, right? But like, put some of the images in a grid, and then, okay, like, we'll refine the design and kind of like iterate over it over and over and over again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
something in my mind, at least, to kind of think about.
I think it's also hard for me because it's almost like you got to start in the middle somewhere. So in programming, we always talk about top-down programming or bottom-up programming. So when I
Mm.
wrote this first spectrogram, my very first V1, the code I hate, I
Yeah.
started bottom up. I knew that I needed to collect some audio buffers from the audio device. I'm like, okay, I wrote some bottom up code to open up the hardware, start filling up an array with wave data, basically, right?
Yep.
So then you're like, okay, now I know I need to write a Fourier transform on that. So let's write that code. Now I need to add an envelope to that. Now I need to cascade multiple buffers so that I get rid of edge defects. Now I need to animate that, put that on the screen. Now I need to add interactive input from the user. Now the problem is, once I do interactive input, then I'm like, okay, well, actually the buffer size needs to change dynamically. The window sizes need to change dynamically. This is math I know that has to be right. Because in the end, it's a scientific instrument. It has to be right. But I think I did get lost in where do I begin? Like, do I start with that bottom up approach, which is how I would have written the app for sure? Um, but I think that without knowing the overall context too, it can paint itself into corners. But I guess, we as developers do that all the time too, especially when you're doing bottom up development. You can paint yourself into a corner. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, the code that needs to access transformations across multiple buffers. That's not easy code to write. You can do it multiple ways. You can fill a very large buffer. You can stitch the buffers, but then your Fourier transform needs to know how to stitch those buffers. Everything needs to know how to do that. And so I think that is actually kind of where I got frustrated and lost. I didn't know, do I start at the low level? Do I start at the high level? But I think just talking to you, gotta start at the middle somehow and work high and low from the middle.
And I think what it is too, what I tell people is, keep experimenting. Like eventually it will click. I think there's going to be some point where something clicks and you start to figure out, okay, like this is the type of feature level. This is the type of feature set. This is how the prompt size, like this is the thing that will work. This is how I iterate. This is when I start a new chat, right? This is when I throw away the context. Like you start to let that stuff click a little bit better. And then I think that kind of hopefully like opens up the world of possibilities.
So if I want to get better at vibe coding, James, should I not, even though in my head a spectrogram app is a very small app, should I be practicing more with even smaller, simpler, boring web forms apps? Or should I keep pushing and learn the dialect to have with the AI in order to achieve the kind of apps that I want to have? It's the other question that kept bouncing around in my head because, again, I keep asking myself these meta questions and I don't have you on call all day to ask you these questions.
Not yet. Yeah.
Yeah, not yet. So I wonder, should I start with more basic apps or should I keep learning what language I need to do to achieve the kind of apps I actually want to write? It's a tough one. I think it's a open question at the moment, honestly.
It's an open question. Yeah. I think both ways are both possible and both, routes that you can go. I'm kind of fascinated by like taking something you have, like I wonder if like the iCircuit gallery and like starting there, which is like something that's like not like it's not like the spectrogram is like overly complex, but it is like much more complex than like here is me working on this thing or whatnot. But like I've done, React sites, I've done backends, I've done Blazor sites, I've done Maui apps, you know what I mean? Like I've done like a wider spectrum. That's what I'm thinking of. But the one thing I haven't done 100% is like really complex user interfaces that are really highly interactive, right? So a lot of my stuff it's interactive, but it's, buttons and forms and entries and data display. And I mean, obviously like some graphical, like the spinny thing and like these other things, right? And pop-ups and my Maui apps, right? And things like that. So I'm not building like a 3-dimensional iCircuit type of thing, but it shouldn't be like impossible. But I'm curious if maybe you start to get the hang of things, right?
Yeah.
Maybe start on a different level and work your way up to saying like, okay, that way you can kind of get better with the actual dichotomy of everything. That maybe the top of my mind kind of thinking there.
Yeah, now I wish I could go into a cold like spend time trying to get the AI to generate the app that I want. And then I wish I could reset my brain and then just code the app that I want.
Yeah.
Because I know how to do GPU programming. I know exactly how I would implement this from scratch. Though I was doing my best not to tell the AI any of that kind of stuff. But it is finding that funny middle ground where maybe I have to give it hints. Maybe I gave it too many hints. All that stuff. I wonder if this is going to be a bigger problem. Like a person who has no programming experience wants a bingo app, and they just say, make me a bingo app, Mr. AI, versus someone like me
Mm.
who has been doing mobile development with high 60 frames per second, full user interaction, full color, everything all the time, using 10% of the CPU, Uh, yeah, I think it's a different ball game versus a React site. I'm sorry, but most apps are just button clicks and text boxes, and those are trivial. I write different kinds of apps than that, and I'm just curious, how can I ever get these AIs to be useful for me?
Mm. I think you'll get there. I have faith in you, Frank.
I remember when the vibe coding was first taking off, people were using a lot of 3JS.
Yeah.
What was that, like a flight simulator or something like that, that gained popularity for a day? And that's
Yeah.
closer. What I'm talking about is closer to a video game than an
Yeah.
app. Even though for me, it's more like a simulation. It's the combination of graphics and hard math and user interactivity. I think
Yeah.
that's where I'm just hitting some edges.
Yeah, and probably like to some point you'll be able to get like parts of that thing created, but maybe not necessarily like the whole thing from scratch currently, right? That is there. Like if you're building Grand Theft Auto 6 or whatever, right? You're not going to like do the entire thing, but you might be able to like do logic and parts of the applications and different bits and pieces as well of it. And like that's a huge win, right? So I think if that is the type of like I'm going this big complex route, then you might think, okay, like what kind of approach do I take, and like how far can I go based on like what I need right now, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just the frustrating thing for me is I do have a V1 in front of me and I want all those features and then the additional features I wanted on top of that.
Yeah.
So part of me thinks I might just throw it all of my V1 code and just be like, can you find the bug in this? Because I just can't find. I was making fun
Possible.
of the AI for its buffer overruns in the C code, but I want to be clear. I'm doing this because I have buffer overruns in my code, and
Yeah.
I don't like the architecture I designed the first time. So I wanted to see what architectures the AI came up with, but
Yeah.
at least the model I was using just couldn't do it. Couldn't do
Couldn't do it. Yeah.
it. Or I couldn't do it. I don't know whose fault it is, really.
Well,
That's the
I
problem.
got I got faith in you, Frank. I think you'll get you there at some point, and just keep working with it. But I think do try like different aspects of it, and hopefully eventually something will click that's there. You know what I mean? I do
Yeah.
think like putting in custom instructions, like figuring out like how you want your code to operate, and then it sounds like you're giving pretty big prompts, which I think is good, but also maybe like do good. You know what I mean? Like I think like that's the other part too. So I'd be interested to see how it works like on some of the other stuff that you're working on to kind of
Yeah.
evolve your prompting. Because hey, when I got started, it was similar, right? I was like really working like what do I do this and what do I do this? Like how do I go down different paths? And then eventually kind of something clicked and I was like, oh, okay, I think I can like go down this route.
I have to ask you, do you type your prompts or do you speak your prompts? I feel like that's a real fundamental difference too. I think I was doing speak the prompt only because I hate typing. And I
Yeah.
think that also got me to just start daydreaming as I was describing what I
Uh,
want to the AI, because in human language and real language and natural language, we can do that. I can have side tangents, but then maybe it listens to my side tangents a little too much.
that might be. I do a little bit of both. However, I do think that like my new thing um is actually like more typing out so I can pause, think about what I actually want to tell it. You know what I mean? So that's kind of been
Okay.
my new thing. Yeah.
Well, I
So
appreciate it. I'm glad the bingo thing worked. I expect it to be a full 3D hopper with a physics engine before you ship this thing, but I like your first version.
yeah, we'll see how it goes. All right, well keep working at it, Frank. I got faith in you. I got all the faith in the world. So
I can
I
become a
have
modern
all
programmer if I just try hard enough.
exactly. You got this. You got this, Frank. All right. Well, let us know where you're at in your journey and things that maybe have worked for you that will maybe help Frank out. We'll see. And yeah, I'm excited for you to get further. I think that first wow moment where you're like, oh, wow, that was actually like really cool. I think that's hopefully where we get to for you, Frank. I got faith is all I'm saying.
Okay. I'm glad you do because I've got depressed. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, I got faith. I got faith. No, I think it's okay. I mean, that's the struggle sometimes of any coding, really, at the end of the day. But also, um,
I think it's just been so long since I was a new coder. You know, like it's not the truth, but it's kind of the truth. If I can imagine it, I can roughly code it these days.
yeah,
I think hitting a actual bottleneck where I couldn't make progress was frustrating. I haven't felt like a beginner programmer in decades, to be
yeah.
honest.
It can feel that way. That's for sure. Yeah, yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah. No, you'll get there. I got faith,
Thanks.
Frank. I got faith. All right. Well, I think it's going to do it for this merge conflict. Yeah, let us know what you think. Right into the show, mergeconflict.fm. But I will see hopefully some of you at Build. I'll be there if you're around. And then we'll talk about Build next week because there'll be all sorts of goodies. I'm pretty excited about it. All right. I'll check y'all next week. So until next time, I'm James Montemagno.
And I'm Frank Kruger. Thanks for watching and listening.
Peace.